Right, next part of the show. We're only about halfway through. It's fairly full tonight. Um, is fake virus news. And these next three reports are very indicative and revealing in equal measure. And a professor has claimed in this past week that 91% of neighbourhoods in England haven't recorded a single coronavirus case now in over 4 weeks. And John Clancy said that he believes lockdowns cause non-coronavirus deaths as well, arguing that putting local areas into lockdown just in case was an unacceptable response to, quote, dodgy data, unquote. And the professor hit out at testing procedures in the UK, saying the system is in total chaos. He also hit back as fears mount over a local lockdown in Birmingham. And in an article titled Local Lockdown Lunacy, putting Birmingham into lockdown would be ridiculous, posted on August the 21st, he argued that 87% of Birmingham's 132 neighbourhoods did not record a single tested positive case of COVID-19 in the past week. And in the blog, Professor Clancy said 91% of England, that's 51 million people, live in neighbourhoods where there hasn't been a recorded COVID-19 case in the past 4 weeks. He added so-called spikes are occurring here and there and everywhere up and down the country because new testing regimes are causing them either with false positives, picking up residual infections, or usually more likely suddenly increased testing in specific areas. Next item. No child who is not already profoundly ill has died of COVID-19 in Britain, a large study has indicated, with the researchers saying that the results should reassure parents as a new school term begins. And the study looked at 260 hospitals in England, Wales and Scotland. Out of the 69,500 patients admitted with proven COVID-19 in the first 6 months of the year, 651 or 0.9% were under the age of 19. 6 deaths of minors were recorded, 3 were newborn babies with other severe health problems, and the other 3 were aged 15 to 18 years old, also had profound health issues. Next item. This is from an official medical background and study that says, in my opinion and that of many of my colleagues, there has been no COVID pandemic. Certainly not in the Surrey region, which is south of London, and I've heard from other colleagues this picture is the same throughout the country. Our hospital would normally expect to see around 350,000 patients or outpatients a year. Around 95,000 patients are admitted to hospital in a normal year, and we would expect to see around a similar figure, perhaps 100,000 patients pass through our A&E department, accident and emergency. Yet in the months from March to June inclusive, we would normally expect to see 100,000 outpatients, around 30,000 patients admitted to hospital, and perhaps 30,000 pass through A&E. But this year, and these figures are almost impossible to get hold of, it is said, we are over 95% down on all of those numbers. I'm going to repeat that again. March to June inclusive, we would normally expect to see 100,000 outpatients, 30,000 patients admitted to hospital, and perhaps 30,000 to pass through accident and emergency. And yet in those months this year, with this so-called pandemic, the hospital figures are down 95%. And in effect, the hospital has been pretty much empty for that entire period. At the start, the staff that questioned this were told that we were being used as a redundant capacity, kept back for the deluge we were told would come. It never did come. And then when staff began to question this, comments like, for the greater good, and to protect the NHS came down from above. Now it's just along the lines of shut up or you don't get paid. The few COVID cases that we have had get repeatedly tested, and every single test counted as a new case. So they're multiplying the one test, meaning the figures reported back to ONS-PHE and the Office for National Statistics and Public Health England were almost exponentially inflated. It could be that COVID cases reported by hospitals are between 5 to 10 times higher than the real number of cases. There has been no pandemic, and this goes a long way to explain why figures for the UK are so much higher than anywhere else in Europe. The Hospital Trust has been running empty ambulances during lockdown and is still doing it now. By this I mean ambulances are driving around with their emergency alert systems active, with no job to go to. And there you have it. Their own fake statistics ran by the CIA-led Johns Hopkins Center has now doubled back on them. And it's time for people to step up and step out into a less Orwellian with masks all tossed into the trash can. We've all been duped. Well, not our members. We knew back in January. But if loads of people have the virus and are breathing on the masks and then discarding them into open trash, why was that not considered a major health issue? Where were the hazard cans for the discarded masks? And what this just proves is all of it was bullshit. Like I said, we stated this on the show last January, long before lockdowns and mandates, and even before the killing off of the elderly to inflate figures. If you doubted what this show has been telling you all along, that all the institutions designed to serve and or protect the people are corrupted at the top level minimum, then this piece should surely have you reconsidering your thinking. This is a portion of an official document, and it shows you how far back they've been doing it. They ordered vaccine manufacturers to turn over their documents and found them graphing how much it would cost for a brain-damaged baby. They determined that a dead baby costs less than a brain-damaged baby. And by graphing these costs, the vaccine manufacturers, they determined how much they would need to charge for the vaccines to still profit. Now, a judge in New Jersey ordered one of these companies to produce their documents and only gave them 48 hours. They did this because the manufacturers were already beginning to manipulate data and lie to make it harder to sue them. If the lawyers had been more prepared, they would have tried to lock down or clean the documents, but since they didn't, these things were found. This was in the 1980s. And this was when they could still be sued. This is also when the Tennessee SIDS cluster happened. And they decided to split the lots so that deaths wouldn't happen in clusters that could then be traced back to the vaccines. Prior to 1986, the vaccine manufacturers could be held liable and sued for vaccine injuries. However, they were being sued so often and losing so much money, they went to the federal government and threatened to stop making vaccines if they weren't protected. The Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was born. Vaccine manufacturers are no longer liable from any harm that is caused by their products. The taxpayer now has to pay for injuries or deaths that occur. It's interesting at the same time that the pharmaceutical companies were granted immunity from being sued, and the rise of autism started to skyrocket. Coincidence? In 2014 alone, 3,540 families were compensated through the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program for death or seriously bodily harm caused by vaccines. And those are just the ones the government conceded to, and not anywhere near the total cases filed. Back in 2017, dozens of families won cases for over 1.4 million. Keep in mind the average award is only $250,000 for a lifetime of disability. Our lives are cheap, it seems, to them. But where is the outrage? Where are all the people screaming for the vaccine manufacturers to be held responsible? Like I said, this is not a new thing. This has been going on for decades. And what this proves is they make drugs or vaccines not to cure people, but for profits, with zero responsibility should they kill or maim the people they sell to. They buy off doctors to promote their drugs and vaccines again, And they, the doctors, also have no personal responsibility as well. And then when it all goes wrong, which is over 90% of the time, given the side effects, they then charge the public for their own incompetence. And we tolerate this shit. Next item. Here come the label machines technology divide and conquer, aligned with guilt and shame programming. We're off to Ireland now. An Irish-based firm will be the first to launch a digital platform aimed at increasing COVID-19 testing for businesses and the public. Oh my. The ROQU Group, based in Dublin, has announced the pilot launch of the Health Passport Ireland, which is said to deliver test results in 15 minutes. The system will be downloadable onto mobile devices. Well, I never. With users able to display or scan their COVID status whenever it's needed. I wonder where that's going to get rolled out. We did warn. If the user has tested negative, a green status will show on their profile, which turns to amber when it's time to be retested. The system was engineered in Ireland, and it's hoped that the health passport will allow people to continue daily activities working with all official COVID-19 test types. A national trial of the system will now take place with participants including Tall Ort University Hospital, Keogh's Farm, Emerald Freight and a number of GPs. The president of ROQU, Robert Quirk, said, "In the past week alone, unfortunately, we have seen continued frustration and disappointment as restrictions have again been tightened due to the continued spread of the COVID-19, which is utter bullshit. They just want to wield out this technology that's going to work against us. Again, I warned of this months, if not years ago. And they said Health Passport Ireland is designed to put a safety net in place where none currently exists. Net being the operative word. You're the fish, you're going to get caught in it. Allowing our economy to recover and thrive in a more safely controlled environment. That's the guilt and the shame. Because the ones stupid enough to download the app and be tested are then going to shame and guilt the ones who have intelligence and thinking brain cells and blame them because they've got no jobs and we're all restricted. This is how they work and operate. And he said, in a world first innovation, proudly engineered in Ireland to the highest standard, that we will enable business and society to finally move forward. No, business and society can move forward without jackasses like these people. And he said the game changer has finally arrived. It is a game changer, because if it gets implemented, it changes everything. As warned in the series Continuum. Now, the ROQU Group has announced that in addition to Ireland, the Health Passport platform will be launched in the US, the UK, Italy, Kenya and Germany, with other locations to follow. Next item. Did you know the CDC, Centre for Disease Control, is not an independent government agency, but is actually a vaccine company. It holds 20 vaccine patents and sells $4.6 billion a year of vaccines. $4.6 billion a year of vaccines. So much for transparency there, not? And this is why I have asked for a public, independent commission on each division a government has or interacts with, because all agencies here seem to be running a scam, not only on the people, but the government as well. Common sense pondering time. As this fake epidemic rolls round to 6 months now, the great question to ponder on is, if not wearing masks was dangerous, why are all the non-mask wearing people still alive? Next item. These are the official figures from the CDC for deaths involving COVID. February the 1st, 0. February the 8th, 1. The 15th, 0. The 22nd, 5. The 29th, 9. Then we go into March. The 7th, 25. The 14th, 52. The 21st, 571. Remember, the 21st is when we launched the private martial law. Just saying. The 28th, 3,152. The 4th of April, 9,999. The 11th, 16,152. The 18th, 17,035. The 25th, 15,388. It went down. The 2nd of May, 13,109. Went down again. The 9th of May, 11,136. It went down again. The 16th of May, 9,133. Down again. The 23rd of May, 7,126. Down again. The 30th of May, 6,080. Down again. Into June, June the 6th, 4,948. Down again. The 13th of June, 4,158. Down again. June the 20th, 3,758. Down again. June the 27th, 3,714. And down again. Then we come to the panicked situation. July the 4th, 4,354, up 600. July the 11th, 5,463, up 1,100. July the 18th, 6,717, up 1,300. July the 25th, 7,457, up 700. That's the panic. And then we go into August. Listen closely. August the 1st, 6,993, down. August the 8th, 6,058, down. August the 15th, 3,988, down again by a third. August the 22nd, 967, down again by 3/4. That's the official figures. Now, it states on these categories, this is like Common Core thinking. It says deaths with confirmed or presumed COVID-19, coded to ICD-10, code U07.1. Presumed. I mean, what type of reporting is that? Well, looks like someone got shot in the head by the Clintons again. We will presume it is COVID-19. Is that what they're saying? Then they state this: when COVID-19 is reported as a cause of death, or when it is listed as a probable or presumed cause, the death is coded as U07.1. This can include cases with or without laboratory confirmation. Their words. So now we have determined they are presenting distorted figures based on assumption. They have other categories with Common Core thinking statistics, like deaths involving pneumonia with or without COVID, excluding influenza. Deaths involving flu with or without COVID. Really? Again, what type of accurate reporting is that? The figure for flu and pneumonia with or without COVID. Which is it to be? And it's all very misleading that, and you either do statistics with or without a separate categories, not combine them, because the figures for flu and pneumonia are now misleading. But that's the way it's designed, you see. Because the viewer of these statistics doesn't now know whether the figures are with COVID or without COVID. It's mind-boggling, this type of jackassery, and a chronic shortage of people who don't comprehend basic math and descriptions. And this is how they get away with false reporting. So the figures jumped up in the same week the clowns issued their hidden martial law, March the 21st. Coincidence? The rise throughout April and May, whilst all were under lockdown, should have seen a reduction, but it didn't. Why? Because they were sending sick patients, COVID or otherwise, into nursing homes and killing off the elderly is why. To inflate their figures and reduce their welfare payments to the people. Out of a fund they have already looted and overspent. Fact. In June, people started protesting and demanding a pullback, and that coincided with an increase again in their fake statistics. To go, look, we need to keep the lockdown. So the CDC silently updated their numbers this week to show that only 6% of all coronavirus deaths were completely due to the virus alone. The rest of the deaths pinned to the China coronavirus are attributed to individuals who had other serious issues going on. Also, most of the deaths were very old Americans with what is called comorbidities. And so they quietly updated the COVID number to admit that only 66% of the 153,500 deaths recorded actually died from COVID, and that's 9,210, which is bad enough, but it doesn't require locking the whole country down. The other 94% had 2 or 3 other serious illnesses, and the overwhelming majority were of a very advanced age. I wonder if I can find it for addition. Maybe not. So, with the CDC being proven to be a private company running under the banner of a government department, one needs to highlight the full scale of shenanigans here at this point. Americans need to listen closely and understand what this piece is saying. You have the CIA and all of its subsidiaries, who are a private organisation running under the banner of a government department, and yet has zero oversight of their operations by the government. That is why they're called private contractors. They're not private at all, as they still come under the banner of the CIA. Hello, Robert David Steele. You have the NSA and DHS running under the banner of a government department, yet they are both private agencies, and again with no oversight from the American government. They operate to spy on the American government, the people, and also the other agencies. Oops. You have a government oversight committee that works directly for the government, and yet it's not allowed to oversight anything due to not having the right security clearances. Oops. You have a central bank running under the banner of a government department called the Federal Reserve, which is not a central bank or even an American company. You have a tax revenue company running under the banner of a government department called the IRS, which is not an actual internal revenue service and is not an American company or even housed on American soil either. The IRS is a crown-based trust in Puerto Rico. You have the Treasury Department running under the banner of a government department operating outside of it also, and refuses to take orders from the president. You have a military and the Pentagon running under the banner of a government department when both are operating on behalf of the Black Sun or Rothschild groups. The DOJ, Department of Justice, running under the banner of a government department, and yet they have no oversight either and also operate outside of the system and the government. For evidence, look at the Weekend at Bernie's woman they wheel out for meetings, Ruth Ginsburg. I could go on, but you get the gist. But the biggest claim that is outside jurisdiction and description is the US, the United States. Because the United States has zero to do with America. And it is an EU creation by wealthy bankers and elite families.